Hello, hello, hello! Welcome to Unboxing Sci Comm. I'm Jamie Gallagher, and welcome to today's show. So these are sessions where I speak to other science communicators and ask them about the world of Sci Comm. What is working? What is not? How did Sci Comm go in 2020? That painful experience for us to talk about. Welcome to everyone who is joining us. Lots of people. I can see you. We're on different platforms as well. Maybe we're even live on Facebook. I don't know. You need to tell me. So if you are watching, let me know. Marika's watching. Yay! You're going to be on next week. I'm so excited. Next week I'm going to be chatting to Marika Naven, who is going to be telling us all about Cheltenham Science Festival, particularly because Cheltenham Science Festival was like the first one, I think, to move online. They took a really early decision, but we'll cover all that next week. And hello to Joshua as well. Who else is out there? You're being so quiet. There's lots of you watching, which is really, really nice. I do want you to use the chat box, whatever platform you are on. Use the chat box, have it opened, put in there all your thoughts, comments, hopes, dreams, wishes, chat to us. That is what we're here for. Now, I'm using the we, but I'm just on my own just now. So today's guest, you might have already looked below and seen who it is, but today's guest is Sally LePage, and I'm so excited because the reason I'm excited actually is because I feel that Sally and I both science communicators, but both in slightly different worlds. Sally lives in YouTube. Well, she lives in the real world as well, but also on YouTube. And this is an alien new world for me, despite the fact that I'm literally in YouTube right now. But YouTube and Sci Comm is an area I'm less familiar with. So that's why I'm really keen to hear Sally's insight and to hear what it's like to share your work on camera, on video, interviewing people and doing pre-recorded content. So that is what we're going to be chatting to Sally about today. But before we bring Sally onto my little virtual stage, I thought I'd show you just a snippet of what Sally gets up to.
This is a story about a time I caught 859 swans. Coast of England, there is a rather unusual beach called Chesil Beach. It's an 18-mile bank of pebbles running parallel to the shore, trapping behind it a long, shallow lagoon of brackish water, so that's half salty, half fresh water. And that water is called the Fleet. The Fleet is home to the largest colony of mute swans in Britain and the only managed mute swan colony in the world, Abbotsbury Swannery. And that is managed by Warden Charlie Wheeler.
So why are there so many swans here at Abbotsbury?
The main reason is the Fleet Lagoon. In the Fleet we have eelgrass, so there's acres and acres of eelgrass beds that grow within the Fleet. The Fleet is very shallow, only being about a metre deep, so it's basically the perfect habitat for swans, and we can have 12 to 1300 swans in the winter time visiting the lagoon itself. They congregate.
And here they are! Sally, hello!
Hello! I just realised I'm wearing the exact same top that I was in the video.
Seamless. It's like you filmed it this morning.
I know, right?
So every time I bring someone new on here, I always tell them I hate introducing people. I do, because I feel like I can never do them justice. I can't share all your experience and who you are. So can you, just for people watching, tell us just a little bit about who Sally is and what you do?
So I am a science YouTuber. So primarily what I do is I make online and digital videos, for YouTube, but for other platforms as well. I occasionally give like public lectures and talks, and I suppose from your perspective, the more traditional side of science communication. But yeah, for me, I'm very much more of a YouTuber. It's odd. I very much more align with the YouTuber side than I do with the strictly speaking Sci Comm side of things. And I know we're going to be talking about the Sci Comm sector, and I had to think, wait, I don't really engage much with the Sci Comm sector beyond YouTube.
And yet you're part of it, whether you're choosing to be or not.
I know, right?
you're it. So YouTube, like how on earth, and you must have been asked this 1,000 times, how on earth do you get started in the world of YouTube?
You film a video and you upload it to YouTube. That's how you get started. So I was doing my undergraduate in biological sciences. I should say I'm a biologist by training. And I knew that I wanted to go into like science TV and science filming and that side of things, but I didn't have any experience in filming, camera work, presenting, script writing, anything like that. And at the time, so this was about 8 years ago, YouTube was starting to become something where people posted regularly. So YouTubers became a thing. It wasn't just random one-off videos. And some of them had just started to move into the science sphere. So we're talking about Veritasium and Charlie is So Cool, like, and even the SciShow was starting at about that time. And I was like, I can do that. And so I just did it and taught myself how to do it, to kind of make like a little portfolio, I suppose, for myself for when I finished university. And then I finished university and still doing YouTube.
Excellent, thank you. A question for the people watching as well. I'm curious, do you consider yourself a YouTube watcher? So the people that are watching us today on whatever platform you're watching us, put in the chat box, do you watch YouTube? I was telling Sally just before this, I'm new to it. I'd say I hadn't really watched much before 2020.
Which is crazy because it's the second largest website in the world?
I'm a slow uptaker on things. I'm slow. So you started somewhere, and it gradually evolves. And this is what I've been experiencing a little bit in 2020, making my first few videos and getting on there. How did you find the learning curve from, if you think back to your first video to now, how much have you learned and what has changed?
Surprisingly little, I think. I mean, I as a person have changed from being a lot older now. But when I started, I was already really into nature photography. So I already knew my way around a camera. So from that perspective, I think everyone learns how to talk to a camera more naturally over time. It's impossible to immediately get used to talking into this inanimate box that gives off no facial expressions. But yeah, I slowly learned to do that. At the very start, I was still making videos about bits of science that I find quite interesting. It started off in my shed. So originally it was called Shed Science, but then I moved out of my parents' garden. And it's quite difficult to take a shed with you to university and then to a shared flat in London. So I have left the shed behind, sadly. But yeah, I think that the topics are all quite similar. I think more that YouTube itself as a platform and the culture on YouTube has changed. So production qualities have risen a lot. The algorithm, which I'm sure we'll get on to mention, has changed from short form to long form. And people see YouTube more as a valid kind of platform, I suppose, now.
And you mentioned a kind of interesting point there of saying you started off talking about the areas that you were familiar with. So, the things that you're working on in your PhD. Did you feel a little bit uncertain when you started moving into other areas? Was it a kind of mindset shift for you from thinking, I communicate the science I know, through to I am a science communicator and I can learn science and talk about it? Was that a bit of a leap for you?
Not at all, because I never restricted myself to the stuff that I was researching. So I started my undergraduate before I was even doing any primary research of my own. So the very first few videos are about evolution and animal behaviour, which are things that I'm super interested in, but weren't things that I would necessarily call myself an expert. I mean, no undergraduate is an expert in anything, really. And so from that point of view, it's not been a worry. I mean, I've also done videos on physics and engineering, which are quite interesting, because that is very much an area where I don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, hell, I've even taught how to do coding in Python, and I can't really code, but that's what other researchers are for, to check your scripts. So from that point of view, yeah, not so much. If anything, the area that I was researching at the start of my PhD was about sexual selection, and it took me many years before I wanted to talk about that online, just because being a woman and talking about anything to do with sex online was bound to open me up to abuse. And so I deliberately didn't talk about the thing that I was most knowledgeable about for many years.
Mm. And you mentioned the kind of algorithm, and would you say that there are formula to YouTube videos that you learn, that you process? Is there standard practice, would you say?
Oh, there's plenty of standard practice. Whether or not it works is another matter. You'll hear an awful lot about how to satisfy the YouTube algorithm. and what to do to make videos that are successful. Very little of it is evidence-based. And it's very much kind of, oh, I did this thing, it went into this black box and then it blew up. So yeah, there are certain things. So for example, a big one is that YouTube used to prioritize based on views, and so getting more views was the most important thing. Now it prioritizes based on watch time, and you will see that there is a point at which suddenly the length of videos rapidly increased because now watch time was more important than views. And you do see some interesting spikes. So it's like videos over 10 minutes long, I think, are allowed to have mid-roll ads, so you can technically earn more money from them. So you will see, if you look at the distribution of the length of videos, you see a humongous spike at the 10-minute mark because suddenly everyone's shifting it. I don't have that problem because I normally try to cut it down from about 30 minutes to something a little bit more manageable. But yeah, I mean,
the sense of filler in some are real. Like I do. That's my frustration with YouTube. Like and you're scared. You skip too far, and you're rewinding.
Yeah, I use the L button a lot, which skips you forward 20 seconds. A lot of people watch on 2 times speed. I can't do that. I find that takes too much concentration. But yeah, there is a lot of skipping.
So there we go. So the videos, there's lots to learn about processing them. And do you know what the ideal length? The last I heard, this was a year ago. I was told that 4:30 is the length that gets you the most interaction. But as you said, it's continued to grow and grow and grow. What would you say a kind of ideal length is? Or does it depend on topic?
The ideal length is as much as you need for the video and no more. 4:30 was the recommendation in like 2012, 2013. I'm fairly certain it won't be that now. Yeah, it used to be 4 minutes. I mean, that's why the Vlogbrothers chose 4 minutes as their video length. That was 10, 12 years ago that 4 minutes was the ideal length. Yeah, I would say it's very much, the YouTube video needs to be as long as it has to be, but absolutely no longer. Attention spans, I say attention spans are short, but then there's also the rise in long form media. So like long form silent wood turning videos or bushcraft videos, or even like primitive technology, for example, does super well. So there is the rise in the kind of the equivalent of slow form TV on YouTube, but it all depends on your audience. I don't think you can have a channel that's based on 4-minute long videos and then whack them with a 45-minute long silent video and expect them to watch it. It all depends on the audience that you build up.
Brilliant. I mean, I love the fact that you were kind of like, oh, I'm interested in this whole TV thing, but I can't just go and rock up the BBC studios and be like, I'm a presenter, have me. Whereas you can with YouTube. It's like literally, you can have your channel of your very own. So thank you for that little tour through YouTube. What I would like to touch on today as well, I've been asking all my guests about this. In fact, before I do, I'll just say our views are staying pretty consistent. People are staying with us. We're past the 4-minute mark many minutes ago. We're 15 minutes in and everyone's staying with us, so that's a good sign. But do continue to talk to us. Like, use the chat box and say hello. Josh and Marika are the only ones chatting today. You're all quiet. You were chatty last week, but we're talking about the controversial topic of evaluation. Whereas I guess you're all on board with the YouTube agenda. Now, I digress, and there's no time for digressions. What I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is 2020. And this is, it's a difficult topic, I think, for a lot of people. And I was saying last week to Neil, I was saying that in 2020, I did very little science communication. I was uncertain. I didn't know what was happening. My standard route of festivals was closed off. I was due to do a TV series and it was cancelled. And I didn't know what direction I was going in. Thankfully, I have a lot of training and consultancy work, and so I threw myself really into that. But what did 2020 and science communication look like to you?
It wasn't great from a financial point of view. I mean, it also doesn't help that I moved house twice in 2020, which I would not recommend in the middle of a pandemic. But I finished my PhD in 2019. And so up to that point, I have been freelancing part-time, making YouTube videos. And so I'd only really been freelancing full-time for about a year. And I feel like any new business, you expect it to take at least 2 years or so to really get profitable. So I was still in that making a loss, trying to figure out how it works stage, when then suddenly the rug got pulled out under my feet. A lot of the work that I do involves international travel. I had 2 videos planned that didn't get cancelled. They got delayed because we were like, oh, maybe next month we'll be able to travel abroad, maybe, and then it didn't. So I had to film one from home. A bunch of videos that I make require other people. So I have a whole series where I go and explore nature with other YouTubers. That got cancelled. I say got cancelled, I didn't do it. And then my side hustle is like you, speaking gigs and public lectures and things. And so because freelancing is very fickle, you never know how much you're going to earn at any one point in time. And for me, it's very much a boom and bust because most of my income comes from sponsored videos. So I can have hugely successful month if I get one good sponsored video and then not have anything for 3 months. So normally public speaking tends to level it out a little bit. That all went. And I live on my own, so this hasn't been great for my mental health, which when you are self-employed and you are your own boss and you have to motivate yourself to do things has been tricky. So thank God for savings is all I'm going to say, because I was freelancing during my PhD and my PhD was funded, I've been able to build up a safety net financially, because otherwise, yeah, I have no idea where I would be right now.
I mean, and I think I can appreciate where you are as well, because it's a particular thing that hit freelancers where work disappears. You know, when I worked at university and you have a salary and it comes in every month, and that's okay. And you know, you're never going to be totally certain whether you're in a job or not. But that initial period of lockdown was hellish. I had thousands of pounds worth of gigs cancelled within a week, and I just sat and I thought, I don't know what I'm doing.
I've been looking for a salaried job for the last 9 months or so and still haven't managed to get one. Because I just can't cope with the uncertainty at the moment. It's such a mental burden not knowing when you're going to get paid that I just want some stability, even if it's just part-time. I just want some stability.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And have you found ways of coping? So for me, I needed to throw myself into a lot of kind of pet projects. I mean, what did you find when all that work was cancelling, or being postponed? How do you keep yourself going through that difficult time?
So to begin with, I did an 8-lecture series on evolution, because everyone was suddenly, like, all the schools were shut, universities were shut, everyone was looking for ways to learn online. I'm like, I literally specialize in online education. I should be able to make this work. And then slowly some other video projects have kind of come back, or at least long-term ones weren't cancelled. But to be honest, I haven't really kept going in the way that I was before. My video output, as everyone who watches my channel will know, has plummeted. And the way that I have survived is to move out of London and go somewhere greener, so that at least I am surrounded by nature. And so making videos, because the videos, unless they're sponsored, I don't earn any money on them. So if I make them or not, I'm still not earning money. So I've been focusing on my mental health more than I have on my video output.
And hopefully you're finding that your viewer kind of subscription is supportive of that as well. And, you know, you have your Patreon as well. Like, if you check out the links down below, there's links to Sal's Patreon. And have you found that the community has been really supportive and understanding of it? Or are they kind of like, we want more content? Do they feel that they're owed something?
I have never been consistent with I've never had like a once a week schedule, so the people that follow me know that there's not going to be a consistency, in part because of these big projects that I do that can take like 3 months per video, and some of them are a lot faster. So it was never a sense of, I mean, everyone always wants more content from you. That is an eternal truth. They will always want more content from me. But I am lucky that my audience tends to be older and more mature, and they realize that I'm a person with a life and who is affected by things in the world. And actually, at the very beginning of the pandemic, when like you, all of my projects were cancelled. And I did a little explainer video saying, look, everything's going to be cancelled. Thank you so much to people who are on Patreon, because I hadn't ever really focused on it before. Patreon was very much, people had asked me if they could donate on Patreon, so I set one up. But then it was so nice to have that stability, and actually lots of people started donating because they knew that I was not getting the same jobs that I was before. So from that sense, there has been a lot of support from my fans. I hate calling them fans. From nice people who happen to watch my videos.
And I'm just gonna say as well, like as I've started to make YouTube videos and things like that, the way I have interacted with YouTube has changed a little bit as well, because I've seen what it feels like to just like get a few likes or some comments or someone saying like this is really good. And if you're watching, like, do that. Like if you watch a YouTube video and you like it, click like, because that keeps you going. So many videos, they watch it and then you don't know if it's working or not. So like videos, subscribe to channels, leave comments down below to encourage
and
people.
It all
because
helps the algorithm.
all helps the algorithm, and I think the YouTuber as well. To know that people are out there and they are supportive is a massive boost. So it was a difficult topic, and so let's move on to an area hopefully with more optimism, maybe, as we talk about science communication in general. Where, I suppose, let's start off with the dismal. Where is there anything that science communication is currently getting a little bit wrong? Is there anything wrong with the sector, or do you think it's alive and thriving?
I mean, I don't tend to associate myself much with the sector. I've been to a few like big or Sci Comm chat things, events and things like that, and I always feel a lot more out of place at them than I do at YouTuber events. So I'd much rather be the only educator in a room full of YouTubers than I am the only YouTuber in a room full of Sci Commers. For some reason, it just sits better with me. So I think, and it's interesting separating out the difference between Sci Comm practitioners versus companies and businesses. But I do think that a lot of science-facing charities and wildlife charities need to understand the value of online video more. The number of massive science and nature charities that have dire YouTube channels makes me so angry. As I mentioned before, I am looking for jobs, so this makes me even more angry, because I'm like, you are wasting such a good opportunity to engage with the public. And you're just like, oh, I'm just going to reformat something, or I'm going to put up random video, or I'm just going to post 10-hour-long talks all on the same day. It's like, no one's going to watch that. And I wish that science charities and big companies understood the role of a YouTuber, which is that there is a person that your audience will identify with. And frankly, people respond to people more than they do to facts and science and anything like that. So if you've got a personality, then they will follow it and they will want to know more. And so few big companies do that.
I couldn't agree more. Anyone that has come along to any of my sessions will definitely have had, in my training sessions, I talk about being human, and I can't stress that enough. I want to see personality. I want to see loud people, quiet people, whoever you are. It genuinely doesn't matter. But when you try and conform to what you think is the kind of template of communication, it never works. I want to see a person. Yeah. I want to hear from a person. It makes such a difference.
One of my very first jobs was creator in residence for GE, General Electric. So this massive, at one point it was the largest company in the world or something crazy, engineering and tech company, hired me, a fledgling YouTuber, to make 20 videos for them so that they would have this personality, this one consistent face of the brand for a period of 3 months, 6 months. I can't remember how long the videos went out for. I think it was about 6 months. And that was fantastic. They were the first FTSE company to do that. Why aren't more companies doing that? Like, why aren't companies having YouTubers in residence, or, even just, I mean, they do often have digital content producers, but it's very impersonal. You don't have that face. It's more like, here is a dumping ground for all of our video content, rather than we're going to make the most of it being a personality driven based platform.
That's good. Marika's just saying in the chat, why aren't they like? Because it maybe seems obvious to us in this bubble, but I don't know. Is it like just companies see YouTube as, I don't know? Is it just that they don't understand the platform? Is that the problem?
The people with the money don't watch YouTube. I think that's the problem, and they see YouTube as something that anyone can do, and so they don't value it. I mean, this is something that comes up time and time again. It's like, oh, can you make a YouTube video for us? I'm like, okay, here's my fee. Sorry, what? We can pay you like £100 or £200. I'm like, no, that is not how long it takes to make a video. So yeah, it's just a lack of value and a lack of understanding. And they always say, oh, but we're a charity, we can't afford it. And then you see them spending thousands on other projects with less success. So yeah, I think it's a lack of understanding the value of online video.
Yeah, and I again, the chat box is agreeing with you that they just don't see it as a professional platform coming in there. And so
yeah, hopefully though. Why does it have to be a professional platform? You're trying to reach the general public. Why do you have to only reach the professional ones?
And I suppose time is running short, so we will just kind of be wrapping things up. But let's think about the future then, where things are going. So is it that companies are going to get on board? Where is the future of education and science on YouTube? If you do some future gazing for us, where will it go?
Ooh, I mean, they are slowly coming around to it. It's been 10 years. They really should be further than they are, but they are understanding the value of YouTube more, and especially as events are being forced online. And so you've got webinars and talks and things online, and just generally people are getting more familiar with the idea of someone watching a video version can be as valid as them going to an actual physical talk. I think it's going to get better. And the more that some companies start paying for YouTubers, the more standard it would be. No one would ask a newspaper to run an ad for free. And so, because they understand the business model, and that's not just how it works. And so the more that it becomes standard for companies to pay YouTubers, and they see the value from paying YouTubers, then I think that's going to happen more. And that would be great, because people are watching less and less traditional media, or at least not on a traditional sense. They'll be watching it on catch up, on demand. And YouTube is going more and more of a valid platform like TV. You go there to watch a series, to watch a show, not just you're sent a link through WhatsApp or Facebook. So hopefully, certainly from my financial perspective, I hope more companies start hiring science YouTubers.
Well, hopefully some are watching today. And so subscribe to Sally's channel and hire her. If you're a company, if you have power, bring Sally in to make something fantastic.
I am very available for hire right now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sally. That's been really, really insightful, because, as I said, we're both in a kind of Sci Comm world in some way, shape or form, but at different ends of the spectrum, different experiences. So thank you very much for sharing yours. Bye-bye, Sally.
All right, thank you. Bye.
So that was Sally LePage. I mean, what a fantastic and inspiring speaker she is. There's a lot I need to process in there. I'm delighted that she was able to join us today. And I'm delighted that all of you were able to join us today as well. Thank you very much for watching along and for commenting in the chat box. Always much appreciated. Next week, Marika, if you're still in the chat box, you're going to be joining me on this stage as well. So we'll be delving into the world of Cheltenham Science Festival next week and hearing about how they moved online and what their plans for this coming year are. So what is it like to run a huge science festival? Marika will be telling us next week. I'm really delighted to have such a good friend on the stream next week. And then we will be off for 2 weeks, but Unboxing Sci Comm is not finished yet. There will be new editions coming in April, and I'll tell you all about that next week. But from me and from Sally, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye.